Hey, what's up, YouTube? So today is April 25th, 2023. Therefore, making it 9 years to the day since Disney Lucasfilm decanonized and ultimately discontinued the expanded universe and rebooted the continuity. For EU fans, this is our Good Friday. This is our day that we mourn, that we remember what happened. But is there hope for the EU? And I think there is. And I really wanted to make this video because I want people to have hope, to not think of this day as this, crucifixion of the EU. While it is a crucifixion of the EU in a sense, it's also a day to be hopeful. Dr. Seuss, I hate to be cliche here, but he had a great quote. Um, he said, "Don't cry because it's gone, smile because it happened." I mean, I'm paraphrasing there, but that's the essentially what he said. And we need to be happy that it happened. Um, and even then, what about the future of the EU, right? Does the EU have a future? Has it had a future? Of course, it has a future. It's always had a future. Within the next few months, Joe Bongiorno will be releasing. In fact, he's already started releasing bits and pieces of it. His Supernatural Encounters book, a book that we've been waiting for a long time, a book that Matt Wilkins has called the Silmarillion of Star Wars. It's a book that will have everything that we love as EU fans, and may even give us closure to so many of the stories that were never finished. This is also a day that we remember, I think, ultimately how EU fans were treated and how that strengthened us. Matt Wilkins, he made a great video years ago where, he talked about how back in the day, the fans were arguing, like they always have, about different things that were going on over the prequels, or in EU, the EU's case, there was a lot of, of course, arguments over EU stories and whatnot. But when the decanonization happened, when the discontinuation happened, when all of our favorite stories, no matter what side of the aisle you were on, when they were, thrown in the garbage, essentially, we all came together. And then we saw how people like Pablo Hidalgo and Jennifer Heddle, how we saw them treating EU fans. It gave us more of a reason to get together. If there's anything if there's anything good that came out of the discontinuation, it's unity among EU fans. EU fans have been more united now than they ever have been. And obviously, yes, there are divisions among us with the Phantom Menace, with how we are approaching the future of the EU. But regardless, we are still together in the sense that we're united in our love for the EU. And ultimately, we all just want to celebrate it. We may have our differences on where we want the EU to go from here. Do we want it to get continued? Do we want to leave it where it's at? Do we want the fans to take over? We have our different views. But ultimately, at the end of the day, all we want to do as EU fans, like I said, no matter where you're at, you want to celebrate the EU. Years ago, too, Matt Wilkins, I know I'm citing him a lot, but he's kind of a lot of my inspiration in a lot of this, and being an EU fan. But Matt, in my favorite video he ever put out, it was titled From Beginning to End, and then he had Star Wars Expanded Universe in parentheses. He was talking about his origin story, how he became an Expanded Universe fan. But then he started getting into more so the fandom, and he started listing, different points people could be at in terms of where they're at in the story. Some people could have read a couple of books, a couple of comics, one book, one comic. played a video game, whatever, like a specific era. But he had something interesting. He said that no matter where you're at, you're just the biggest fan as Matt is. And, Matt has everything. You're just the biggest fan as him. And then he says something I'll never forget. He said, there is no hierarchy of fandom. We are not a fan base that is divided. And yes, you'll see me at times, arguing with other EU fans. But at the end of the day, I always remember that we're still EU fans. And we still have a common love. And that is the EU for what it is. And I think if that is to give anyone hope, if you are struggling to get hope, that should be what should give you that hope. The fact that we are so united, the fact that we are so devoted to this, shows that we can do anything. We can do anything if we stick together. We can show Disney how much we love the EU. And even if even if Disney recognizes that years from now, they'll eventually recognize it. And I think they'll start talking more about the EU one day. So this day gives me hope. It always has. Some people feel vengeful. Some people feel like justice needs to be served. I don't think of any of that. I think of hope. That is ultimately what this day should be all about. No matter what Disney does to our story, no matter what they continue to do to our story, this day should give us hope. This should not be seen as the funeral or the death date of the EU. This should be seen as like the resurrection of the EU. This is our Easter. This isn't our Good Friday. This is our Easter. This is the day that we come together as EU fans and rise and show Disney what we're all about. And not just Disney. Show the Disney Canon fans. Because it's their despicableness. It's their rude comments. It's their lies and other disinformation that they put out about us. That's what keeps us strong. That's what keeps us going. That's what gives us motivation to continue speaking about the story. And it will never end. Our fandom has never ended. And if there's anything I've realized over the past year or so, we're only growing. We're only growing. I meet new EU fans almost every day. People telling me that they just started reading it, that maybe they follow a suggestion of mine, or some of them maybe they hadn't read the EU in a long time and they're coming back to it. Maybe they were EU fans and they gave the Disney Canon a shot and they didn't really like it, so they came back. And I've heard all kinds of stuff from people, and I'm going to continue to be who I am. It seems like after Lent, I haven't been as active as I usually used to be. And that's because, now I'm a little bit more involved in my faith because I am finally a Catholic. My conversion has been complete. And so I am a little bit more involved in my faith. Plus, I'm about to graduate in a month, 2 days from now, it'll be a month until my graduation, May 27th. That's when I graduate. So, and I have lots of big exams next week. So, I haven't been as active as I usually am. Hopefully this summer, I'm going to be so active. That's kind of my plan. Because I love celebrating the EU. The defending aspect of it, there's a certain, kick I get out of it. But that's not what I love. That's not what gives me joy. What gives me joy, and I think there's a difference between joy and happiness. Joy is when someone has no worries, when someone is just loving life. And the EU that's part of the reason why I do love life sometimes. Sometimes I don't like life, and I think everyone can speak to that, but the EU is one of the brightest aspects of my life, along with my faith and in my family. Um, and I love celebrating the EU. I love getting together with people, talking about it, um, conversing about it. Um, it's part of who I am now. It's part of what I do on a day-to-day basis. And now I've built this community, and this is, obviously I haven't done it alone, but because of the EU, now I have this entire community of people: Marcel, Brennan, Alex, Matt, Chris, Slav, Titus, and everyone else I didn't mention, Max, uh, Lopsided, so many awesome people that I would have otherwise never have met if it wasn't for the EU. Despite our differences, where we live, what religion we practice, our gender identity, sexual orientation, whatever it is, despite all of that, our combined love for the expanded universe has brought us together. And if anything, what Disney did on this day 9 years ago, it just fueled a fire for our love for the EU. That's all it did. It's all it did. Of course, I was around when that happened, but I was too young to know about it or to even comprehend what was going on, because I'm only 18. Remember, 9 years ago, I was 9, right? My math is right there. 9 or 10 years old, so I didn't know what was going on. I didn't care. I just love Star Wars, I just love the movies. But now of course, I'm able to comprehend what's going on, and from all I've seen, it's made the EU fandom stronger. It has made us better. It has made us more in love with this story, and that is what the April 25th reboot did for us. Yes, we're not getting our stories continued. Yes, the adventures of of Jaina and Ben, of Vestara, of Luke, Han, and Leia, so many other great characters. Their stories are, we don't know what happened to them. We don't know where they went in their journey, how their journey ended. But this day has given us hope that one day we will find out what happened. We'll find out what happened to Jacen and Jagged and their marriage and their children that they ultimately would have. Ben and Vestara, hopefully, one day we'll see them get together. Luke, Han, and Leia, hopefully we'll see them go out like they should and have a death that they deserve. But this day only gives us hope. So if you are an EU fan, do not use this day as a day of crying or pouting or whatever. Use this day as a day of celebration, as a day of hope.